It was the first time the matter was called, and as with everything in our political sphere, it was not devoid of drama. Though Eugene George, the former public relations officer for the St. Lucia Labour Party, made a prompt arrival for court, accompanied by his attorney, the complainant, Richard Frederick, and his attorney, Lydia Faisal, were nowhere to be seen. The case was filed by Mr. Frederick when he was Minister for Housing, and it concerned comments made by the SLP PRO, which Frederick found offensive. The matter came up Wednesday, and CTV's Alicia Ali puts the entire episode in perspective.
Today was a rather long and drawn-out day in court in the Richard Frederick versus Eugene George case. Now, as many of you will remember, on November 23, 2010, Eugene George, who was the then Labour Party PRO, made certain allegations and certain statements regarding the then Housing Minister and Richard Frederick. And Richard Frederick indicated that he was going to file a lawsuit, which he did for the Labour Party. Dr. Kenny Anthony, who was an opposition leader then and who is now the Prime Minister, was representing Eugene George. Now, the case came before the High Court this morning. It was the first appearance in court. Now, there was some confusion because a lot of people thought that this was going to be a status hearing to determine case management issues, which is where the attorneys would file their submissions, make applications before the court. However, the twist came when we heard that a default judgment in favor of Richard Frederick was to be issued. Now, the reason being that apparently Dr. Kenny Anthony filed the defense statement 2 days late for Eugene George. Now, because the defense statement was filed late, the court took it into perspective that a defense statement was not filed, even though it is before the courts, and as such they were going to award damages to Richard Frederick, and so an assessment hearing was being held today. However, due to a lot of back and forth, in fact, the attorney for Richard Frederick, Lydia Faisal, could not be found in the morning at the High Court. So the matter had to be stood down, even though it was the first matter on the list. Ms. Faisal showed up somewhere around a little after 10 o'clock, going up to 11. And even then, you know, submissions were made, applications were heard, and Dwayne Jabatis, who is now representing Mr. Eugene George, could not speak before the court for some technical reasons, so he had Gerald Williams holding for him. And as far as we know, the case has been adjourned to a later date, but though right now it does look that Richard Frederick may have won this round.
We will have more on that story in our next broadcast.